I feel the burn. Do you feel the burn? I feel the burn. I'm Senator Tim. And on behalf of the Bernie Sanders campaign, I ask you to listen to the names of some of the people, some of our neighbors, who bring the burn to us and who work to make this revolution go forward. Listen to the names. Jill St. John, Carl Key, Greta Guck, Christine Yabo, Katie Cole, Aaron Gunderson, Caroline McGuire, Democrat Chairman Kylie Overson, and granddaughter Bila. Let's give these folks a hand and all of these other people that are working for us. Okay, I have 6 questions. I have 6 questions for you. Do you believe that everybody has a right to food? Yeah. To shelter? Yeah. To education? Yeah. To health care? Yeah. To a clean environment? Yeah. To a good paying job? Yeah. Friends, we are in the right place. We are in the right time because of your vision, your work. With us today, we have a passionate leader who also believes and has this vision. He believes what we believe. Each and every person, no matter your parents, no matter where you live, has intrinsic worth. Each person comes to us with a right to food, to shelter, to education, to health care, to a clean environment, and a decent paying job. And the leader that has this vision is with us today. He is the next President of the United States, Bernie Sanders. And I am pleased to have Ed Schultz, a wonderful, progressive, national broadcast voice. Ed Schultz, come forward to introduce our presidential candidate.
Hello, North Dakota and Minnesota. Good to have you here. I'm here to tell you that this is a special moment in time in American history. This is going to be an election about absolutes. Absolutely, Bernie Sanders is in your corner. He's your next door neighbor. He's the guy that's going to leave the light on for you. He's the guy that stands with those Verizon workers who want to keep their health care. Yeah. It's an absolute. After he's president, that's not going to change. He'll still be there for the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, the little guy, and he'll stand up to Wall Street. Finally, in your generation, you have an opportunity to support someone who can't be bought. He's as pure as the North Dakota white fallen snow out there. You can count on him to walk the line with you. You can count on him for women's rights, for equal rights, for social justice. And I'll guarantee you, when he's president of the United States, he's not going to court a trade agreement that's going to ship your job overseas and rob you of your future. Bernie Sanders was the man who stood up back in the 90s and said no to favored nation trading status with China, because all that's going to do is ship our jobs overseas and create a trade deficit that we're not going to be able to handle. Do you know that our trade deficit with China right now, they can build 2 F-18 fighters every day and not spend a dime? Those are your jobs. Now, a lot of politicians will come up and tell you that they're for you. Let me ask you a question. Do they walk the walk? Are they in the line with you? An absolute is that his competition did a turn on Keystone. His competition did a turn on the Trans-Pacific Partnership. I ask you to do this. Let history be your guide. Every single vote that Bernie Sanders has taken, it hasn't been for Wall Street. It's for the hard-working middle class of this country that is depleting, and that's why he is in this race. I ask you to not only show up here today, I ask you to go do the due diligence, and you be fair to your family. You vote for their future. You vote for a future that you can believe in. You take the heart, the soul, the desire of this country to the next generation. You can have a better life. You can have the hope. You can make it happen. And this man will stand with you day in and day out. He will fight for your jobs. He will fight for this country. And he will fight for what made this country great. I know Bernie Sanders. I know him. He comes from a middle-class little home in Burlington, Vermont. He's got grandkids. He's like you. He probably eats a little bit too much ice cream every now and then. But he is a fighter for the people. And he will never forget why he is where he is today. It's because of you and your heart and your desire. One final point. In 2009, when I was doing a cable show and I was doing a network radio show around the country, I did a Voices of America tour. And I went to 25 cities around the country. And what Bernie was saying on the cables, I kept hearing at these town halls. I came back to my team, I said, this guy knows where America is. He's saying all the things that all these folks are talking about. I ask you to do the due diligence for America. We're in this thing to the end. Don't give up. We're going to change this country. We're going to change this system. And we're going to show who the hell runs Wall Street. That's Main Street. It is my pleasure to introduce to you the next President of the United States, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders.
WDAZ Special Report.
Good afternoon. Hundreds of Bernie Sanders supporters are filling the Ramada in Fargo at this hour for the presidential hopeful. They started lining up, get this, just after 5 this morning, braving our cold and our wind to try and claim one of the just 1,800 spots available.
The lines have been winding for blocks around the building throughout the day. The tickets were free, and our reporters inside say they were claimed, and the ballroom was completely filled by about 1:15, and the supporters have already started their Bernie chants, and it is standing room only. Bernie Sanders made a surprise trip to UND before his stop here in Fargo. He's planning to go to Bismarck from here.
This is Bernie Sanders at the podium at the Ramada right now.
Prairie Rose, Seminole.
Tim Mattern, but I want to say a special word about your native son here. Ed, as you know, was born here in Fargo. And he has gone far and wide. And Ed is, I think everybody knows, has had national radio shows, has had national TV shows. What Ed has done, which is literally unique in the media, as you know, our media is owned by very large corporations. And they don't want certain issues really to be widely discussed. And
Media
one of the
is owned
issues
by very
that they
large
have
corporations.
chosen pretty much to not talk about is, as Ed just indicated a moment ago, our disastrous trade policies, which have cost us millions and millions of jobs. This guy, more than any other person in the media, by far, it's not even close, has been the person to educate the American people about the disastrous trade agreements that this country has had. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank Ed Schultz for doing that. Sounds to me, you know, somebody who's known Ed Schultz for many years, sounds to me that you raise tough and good people here in Fargo. Let me say a few words about the campaign, and then I want to talk to you about why this campaign is doing so well. Number one, I am extremely proud of the fact that when we began this campaign a little over a year ago, we were considered to be a fringe campaign. No one really took us terribly seriously. Well, a lot has changed in the last year. Now, Wall Street is not too happy about it. The world of corporate America is not so happy about it, but I think millions of Americans are happy about the changes that they are seeing. And what we have seen is we have now won primaries and caucuses in 19 states in our country. And on June 7th, with your help, we're going to win the caucus here in North Dakota. And this is what this campaign has also accomplished already. When we began, we were told, well, the only way you can raise the kind of money you need to run a successful national campaign is to establish a super PAC. We agreed with you, and we did not do that. But what we did do is, if you can believe it, in the last year, we have received close to 7.5 million individual campaign contributions. And what that has shown, and this is a really profound political lesson for America. It has shown you can run a winning national campaign without being dependent on Wall Street and the big money interest. I'm proud of that. And here's what else we have done. You know, we've won 19 and we've lost many as well. But in virtually every campaign in all of the states, virtually every one, every poll that I have seen, something very interesting is occurring. You know what's occurring? We win, and in many ways, overwhelmingly, the votes of young people. And by young people, I don't just mean the 20-year-olds. You know, when you get older, the definition of old changes. We are winning the votes of people 45 years of age and younger. Now, why is that? Why is that important? It is important because we are winning the vision for the future of America and for the vision of the Democratic Party. Now, one of the reasons that Donald Trump is not going to be One of the reasons that Donald Trump will not become president of the United States is that we are beating him in virtually every national and statewide poll. And our job, which we are going to undertake in a very aggressive way, is not only to do our best to win here in North Dakota and the remaining 7 states that are left, and to end up, and it's a steep hill and we acknowledge it from day one. Yeah, I think we can. We're going to have to win. It's not easy. But here in North Dakota and the remaining 7 other states, we have to win about 65% of the pledged delegates. Right now, we're at about 45.5%. I want to be at 50% plus 1. So that's task number 1. So you guys are going to have to come out in large numbers and give us a great victory here in North Dakota. And then our friends in California, they're even bigger than Vermont and North Dakota. You know that? So we are going to have to show our friends in the big states to come out and give us a great victory there as well. But the other thing that we're going to do in this remaining period before the Democratic National Convention is to make the case to the superdelegates. Now, we can talk about superdelegates. It's a very strange phenomenon. Secretary Clinton received, if my memory is correct, about 450 superdelegates before anybody else was in the race. Months before the first ballot was cast. That is the establishment talking. And we have got to tell the establishment that is not a process which is acceptable. And the case that I think we can make, not only is it kind of wrong from a democratic process point of view, the real case that we can make and must make is that all of us, you know, whether it's Hillary Clinton or myself or anybody else, we agree Donald Trump must not become president of the United States. And I believe that very fairly and very objectively, we can make the case that our campaign and our energy and our enthusiasm is the campaign to create a very large voter turnout in November. And here's what happens. This is the story of contemporary American politics. When people are demoralized and when people give up on the political process, Republicans do extraordinarily well. They thrive on low voter turnouts. And that's why Republican governors try to suppress the vote. Fewer people vote, the better they do. We do exactly the opposite. When people are excited and enthusiastic and are prepared to engage in the political process, and when young people, in some cases who may never have voted, come out, and when working class people who have in many cases turned their backs on the political process because they've been burnt so many times. When those people come on in and we have a large turnout, you know what happens? Progressives and Democrats win elections. So I believe it is not just the polling, which has us in virtually every instance doing better than Secretary Clinton against Trump. It is the fact that we have the energy to create the kind of turnout that will mean not only a victory for the president's race, but for the United States Senate, for the House, and for governors' races all over this country. Now, the reason that our campaign is doing as well as it is we're doing something quite unusual, and that is not just raising money in an unusual way from ordinary people rather than super PACs, but we are equally doing something fairly radical. We're telling the truth. We're telling the truth at a time when the truth is not always easy or pleasant to tell. But what I believe, and I think most of you know, is that whether it's in our own personal lives or in the political life of the nation, if we do not confront reality and the truth, and if we simply push problems underneath the table, they are not going to be addressed, they are not going to be resolved, and that is the cowardly thing to do. So what this campaign is about is saying, look, these are our problems, we believe these are our solutions, and let's go forward. And let me deal with some of those issues right up front. First point that I want to make is you can watch television 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and television will not give you the reality of American life. You have got to determine that reality. You are the only people, the ordinary people of this country, the middle class, the working class, low-income people. We are the people whose lives are the reality of the American people. And just because you don't see it on TV does not make it true. All right? What are the truths? All right, let's talk about them. For a start, no, that is exactly not the truth. The truth is you, not me. And if there is any person here thinks that I'm coming to you as some kind of savior, that I'm going to do it all myself, you're wrong. No president, not Bernie Sanders or anybody else, can do it alone. We don't need a savior. We need a political movement when millions of people. See, there are people who are voting for Donald Trump who think he's going to do it all. Wrong. The only way that real change ever takes place is when millions of people stand up and fight back. That's what this campaign is about. So what are the issues? What are the issues that motivate us all? Everybody in this room believes passionately in democracy. And I want to tell you that today, democracy, the very simple and beautiful system which says one person, one vote, that every person in this room who's an American citizen is equal under the law to have a right to vote and determine the future of this country. That system of democracy today is under deep assault. We have a campaign finance system which is corrupt. And I want you all not to take for granted what we see every day in the papers. It is not acceptable that Wall Street and billionaires and their super PACs buy elections. It is not acceptable that all over this country, I'll give you an example. I was out in Nevada a number of months ago. There's a guy named Sheldon Adelson. Do you know who Sheldon Adelson is? He's just another billionaire worth 40, 50 billion, or whatever he's worth. He summoned to Las Vegas all of the Republican candidates, and many of them came. I don't know that all of them came. And he did a call, and essentially he said, all right, Republican candidates, what are you going to do for me? I'm worth $40, $50 billion. I'm prepared to put hundreds of millions of dollars into your campaign. Tell me what you're going to do for me. That's not democracy. That is oligarchy. And that is not what this country, if we have anything to say about, is going to become. I believe and you believe that every person in this room, whether you're low income, whether you're working class, middle class, you are as important in the political process as are the Koch brothers or Adelson or the other billionaires who are trying to buy elections right now. And that is why together we're going to overturn this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision. And I want to see a system where anybody in this room, anybody in this state, you're conservative, you're progressive, you're moderate, I don't care. But I want you to be able to run for office, to fight for your point of view without having to be dependent on millionaires for your campaign funding. But it's not just the corrupt campaign finance system we have got to confront. It is a rigged economy. This is what a rigged economy is about. It is about a nation, our nation today, having more income and wealth inequality than any other major country on earth, and it is worse in our country today than at any time since 1928. Here is the reality. The reality is that the top 1/10 of 1%, not 1%, 1/10 of 1%, now owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90% of our people. Got that? 1/10 of 1%. The reality is that the 20 wealthiest people in America today own more wealth than the bottom half of our country, 150 million people. The reality is that one family, the Walton family of Walmart, one family owns more wealth than the bottom 42% of the American people. And when you talk about a rigged economy, and I want you to think about this, it's not just that the Walton family is the wealthiest family in this country. They own the largest private sector company who employs more people than anyone else, and that's Walmart. Now, what is interesting about Walmart? What is interesting about them? Poverty wages. Is that what you said? That's the point. So think for a minute. You got the wealthiest family in America paying their workers starvation wages, which results in the fact that many of those workers are forced to go on Medicaid and in food stamps. We got anybody here working at Walmart's? You did? Okay. Dad does. Okay. People, so you got workers at Walmart going on food stamps and Medicaid because they don't get the wages and the benefits they need. And who pays for those food stamps and Medicaid? The working families of America are subsidizing the wages of the wealthiest family in this country, worth well over $100 billion. Now, that is what a rigged economy is about. The rich get richer, poor get poorer, and then the middle class ends up subsidizing the very very rich. So I say to the Walton family, get off of welfare. And pay your workers a living wage. Today in America, in my state, and I'm sure in your state, we have people who are working not one job, but they're working 2 or 3 jobs, trying to cobble together some the income they need to take care of their families and some health care. What our goal together must be is to create an economy that works for everybody, not just the 1%. So how do we do it? Well, for a start, we make sure that anybody in America who works 40 hours a week does not live in poverty. And that means we raise the minimum wage to a living wage, $15 an hour. It means that we end the absurdity of women in America making 79 cents on the dollar compared to men. And I know that because we believe in justice in our movement, that every man here will stand with the women in the fight for pay equity. I was in Flint, Michigan several months ago, and I had the painful experience of talking to parents whose children were poisoned and suffered brain damage because of the poison and the lead in the water they were drinking. But nobody should think that it's just Flint, Michigan that has problems with clean drinking water. Hundreds of communities around America are struggling with that issue. We have an infrastructure in this country that is our roads, our bridges, our wastewater plants. We used to have the strongest cutting-edge rail system in the world. No longer the case. Many of our airports are becoming older and obsolete. We have levees and dams that are in very fragile condition. This is the United States of America. Our infrastructure should not be collapsing. Together, by investing $1 trillion over 5 years, we're going to create 13 million good-paying jobs and rebuild our infrastructure. Now, everybody knows, you know, in Vermont, sometimes people go over a pothole, we don't see them for weeks. We got to thaw them out in the spring, they're gone. But people, it's not funny. Do you know that we pay people, motorists, people who own cars and drive cars, spend collectively billions of dollars a year as a result of damage done by potholes and bad roads? Yeah. So, we've got to rebuild our infrastructure, and when we do that, we make our country stronger, safer, and more efficient. And Ed Schultz talked to you about, and he has spent the last many years of his life educating the American people on this, that if we're going to rebuild the American middle class, we cannot continue these disastrous trade agreements like NAFTA, CAFTA, and permanent normal trade relations with China. Now, the young people may not know it, so you'll have to trust me on this one. But there was once a time when you can go into a department store and buy products made in the United States of America. Now, I know young people don't believe me, but check it out, Google it, you'll find that it's true. But what has happened over the last 30 years or more, corporations have made a decision. Now, first of all, you got to understand, corporations wrote these trade agreements, okay? They wrote them, not ordinary people. They wrote them to benefit corporations. And what do corporations want? You don't need a PhD in economics to figure out. If you are a General Electric, you're United Technologies, you're large multinational corporations, do you really want to pay workers in the United States a living wage, provide them with decent benefits, have to accept regulations that protect the environment. Do you want to do that? No, you don't want to do that. You'd rather shut down in this country, move to China, move to Mexico, and pay people very, very low wages, and then you bring your products back into this country. Guy who is the former head of General Electric, his name was Jack Welch. They called him Neutron Jack because he moved very quickly to shut down plants in America. And he said, this is what one of the leading businessmen in America said a number of years ago. He said, if I had my druthers, I would put our manufacturing plants on barges. And I would take those barges to those countries where the wages were lowest. This is one of the leading businessmen in America. General Electric has done it. I was just in Indiana a couple of weeks ago. United Technologies throwing 2,100 workers out on the streets in Indiana. They're moving to Mexico where they're going to pay people there $3 an hour. It's happened in your state. It's happened in my state. Truth is, over the last 35 years, we've lost tens and tens and tens of thousands of factories shut down, moved abroad, and we have lost millions of decent paying jobs. Our message to corporate America is that if you want us to purchase your products, and every night on TV you see those ads, buy, buy, buy. If you want us to buy your products, you're damn well going to have to start manufacturing those products in America, not in China. We have a tax system which is totally corrupt. It allows in a given year corporations that make billions of dollars in profit to stash their money in the Cayman Islands and in Bermuda and in other tax havens, and in a given year not pay a nickel in federal income tax. We have people on Wall Street, hedge fund managers, who make millions and millions of dollars a year. Their effective tax rate is lower than what many of you pay. So our message to the wealthiest people in this country and our message to corporate America is, you know what? The rich are getting richer. Corporations are enjoying fantastic profits. You are going to start paying your fair share of taxes. Here in Fargo, in my city of Burlington, Vermont, all over America, you got elderly people who are trying to make it on $10,000, $11,000 a year Social Security. You know what? Nobody can make it on 10 or 11,000, and those people are struggling. Those people are hurting. A great nation, in my view, is not judged by how many millionaires or nuclear weapons it has. It is judged by how we treat the most vulnerable amongst us. Now, my Republican colleagues in the Senate, they've got a brilliant idea on how we should deal with Social Security and with the issues of people with disabilities and with disabled veterans. Their solution, if you can believe it, is to cut Social Security. Well, we've got some bad news for them. They're not going to cut Social Security. We are going to expand Social Security. This campaign has been talking to young people. And what young people are telling me is, how does it happen that when they do exactly the right thing, what their parents wanted, what their teachers wanted, what their communities wanted, they went out and got the best education possible, why is it that they are ending up 30, 50, 70,000 or more in debt? Anybody here with student debt? Unbelievable. Every place I go, it's the same thing. It is millions of people struggling with student debt. And I could tell you horrific stories about people who are $300,000 or $400,000 in debt, people who dropped out of college, $60,000 in debt after 2 years, people who have been paying off their debt for 25 years and are more in debt today than when they first took out their loan. But we have got to do two things with regard to higher education in this country. And again, what this campaign is about is thinking outside of the box, outside of the status quo. If we all understand, as I think we all do, that education and learning is inherent in who we are as human beings, and we want to keep learning until the day we die. And if we also understand that we are living in an increasingly competitive global economy, it is a no-brainer to understand that we need the best educated workforce in the world, right? Everybody knows. I'm not saying anything that everybody in America doesn't understand. Technology has changed. The economy has changed. We need our people, and our people need more education than they used to. 50 years ago in my state of Vermont, 50 years ago in North Dakota, you had a high school degree and you could go out and you probably get a pretty good job. High school degree, all right? Okay. The world has changed, that's all. And technology has changed. People need more education today. So when we think in the year 2016 about public education, it's not good enough anymore to think just about first grade through 12th grade. That was great then. Today, when we think about public education, we've got to be thinking about making public colleges and universities tuition free. Now, I mean this very seriously. I'm going to ask you a question. Does anybody think that that is a radical idea? No. It really is not. It is not a radical idea. It is an absolutely common sense idea whose time will come. Our job is to make it come sooner rather than later. Right now in Germany and in Scandinavia, how much does it cost to go to college? All right, you got it. So if they are smart enough in those countries to understand the importance of investing in their young people, understanding that they want to tap all of the intellectual capability that those countries have, that is a lesson we should learn here. And then there's the other issue. What do we do with the student debt? Now, right now, you have people who are carrying student debt who are paying 6, 8, 10% interest rates on that debt, and they're stuck with those interest rates. What I believe is everyone having student debt should be able to refinance those loans at the lowest interest rates they can find. And that will mean a very substantial reduction in student debt in this country. Then people ask me, they say, well, you know, Bernie, you're a nice guy. You want to make public colleges and universities tuition free. You want to substantially lower student debt. Well, how are you going to pay for that? And I will tell you exactly how we're going to pay for that. 8 or 9 years ago, as you remember, as a result of the greed and recklessness and illegal behavior on Wall Street, this country was driven into the worst economic recession since the Great Depression. And with Wall Street on the verge of collapse, these guys went begging the United States Congress, against my vote, by the way, to bail them out. They wanted a bailout. Well, Wall Street is doing just fine today. I believe we should impose a tax on Wall Street speculation. Which will bring in more than enough money to make public colleges and universities tuition-free and substantially lower student debt. When we talk about the needs of the American people, we get into a very, very fundamental debate, which is what politics is all about. What are our rights as people? Well, we all know we have a great constitution, a brilliant constitution, which says that we have freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to do this and freedom to do that. But there are people like Franklin Delano Roosevelt, myself, and others who think that when we talk about the rights of the American people, we have got to go further than just our political rights, our freedom of assembly and so forth. Now, as many of you know, in every major country on earth, except the United States, health care is a right of all of their people. So this is true in the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Holland, all of Scandinavia. You guys border on Canada, right? Well, it is true in Canada as well. They have had a system of universal health care for many decades now. And I live 50 miles away from the Canadian border near Quebec. Now, it seems to me that when we look at the needs of the American people, we should decide whether or not we believe this. But I'll tell you what I believe. I believe that health care is a right for all people, not just a privilege. And if elected president together, we are going to pass a Medicare for all health care program. And when we do that, because right now we pay by far the highest costs, we spend far more for health care per capita than any other country on earth. We can save middle-class families thousands of dollars a year by moving toward a Medicare for all system. But in addition to that, this is what we do. Think about what this means. Think about in America where anybody and everybody can go to the doctor when they need to go and not worry about whether they don't have insurance or whether they have a deductible or a copayment. Think about an America where people can get the prescription drugs they need and not be ripped off by the drug companies. Right now in our country, the drug companies charge us by far the highest prices in the world for medicine. By far. A Medicare for all single-payer system will end that. I am a member of the U.S. Senate Committee on the Environment. In my view, having talked to scientists all over this country and all over the world, the debate is over. Climate change is real. It is caused by human activity, and it is already causing devastating problems in our country and around the world. In my view, we have a moral responsibility to leave this planet in a way that is healthy and habitable for our kids and future generations. Now, I am more than aware that North Dakota is a fossil fuel state. And that there are a whole lot of future generations. Those communities that lost jobs as a result of this energy transformation. $41 billion. Our job, our goal is not to punish the workers, it is to save this planet. This campaign is listening to people whose voices are not often heard. We are listening to our brothers and sisters in the African American community. And they are asking me why it is that we have trillions of dollars to fight a war in Iraq we never should have gotten into. A war that I vigorously opposed, but they are asking, how do we have trillions for a war in Iraq, but we don't have enough money to rebuild the inner cities of America? And they are right. This campaign is listening to our brothers and sisters in the Latino community. And they remind us there are 11 million people in this country who are undocumented, who are being exploited every day, because when you're a worker and you have no legal rights, your employer takes advantage of you. And that is why we need a path towards citizenship through comprehensive immigration reform. And this campaign is listening to a people whose pain is almost never heard, and that is people in the Native American community. Now, all of you know that from before this country was a country, when the first settlers came here, the Native American people were lied to, they were cheated, and treaties they negotiated were broken. You also know that our culture and some of the best parts of our nation are indebted to the wisdom and the work of the Native American people. In fact, in my view, we owe the Native American people a debt that we can never fully repay. They have taught us so much. And the most important thing, I believe, that they have taught us is that as human beings, we are part of nature, that we must coexist with nature. And that if we destroy nature, you know what we're doing? We are destroying the human species. We're destroying ourselves. But yet, despite all they have done, in many reservations and Native American communities, the situation of the Native American people today is absolutely dire. I was yesterday in Pine Ridge in South Dakota. What I saw there is literally beyond belief. What I saw there, and I realize that Pine Ridge is not unique, that there are reservations around the country also where the unemployment rate is unbelievably high, poverty rate high, drug abuse off the charts, young people killing themselves in horrific numbers. We, together, if elected president, will fundamentally change our relationship to the Native American people in this country. Real change, as everybody here knows or should know, never takes place from the top on down. It's never some president signing a document. Real change takes place when millions of people stand up, fight back, and demand that change. When workers in America 100+ years ago were forced to work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, when kids, little children, were in the factories and lost their fingers and their hands, working people said, you know what, workers will have dignity on the job. We are going to organize trade unions. And I thank the workers for doing that. In the worst and ugliest moments of slavery in this country, there were African Americans and their allies who stood together. They were beaten, they were killed, they went to jail, but they stood together and said that the day will come in this country when racism and bigotry will end. People forget this. Many children in school don't even know this. Less than 100 years ago, not a long time, women in America did not have the right to vote, did not have the right to get the education they wanted or the jobs they wanted. Whole sections of our society were denied to women, and the establishment and the system said to women, your place is at home having babies. That's what you're supposed to do. But women stood up and fought back. And they said, you will not define my life to me. I will define my life and what I want to do. And millions of women and their male allies made it clear that in this country, women will not be second-class citizens. But that took enormous struggle. Nobody gave it to women. Think about how difficult that struggle was, not only standing up and fighting the establishment, but redefining one's role in society. And then if we were here, I'll give you another example, 10 years ago, no time at all, somebody jumps up and says, you know, Bernie, I think that by the year, say, 2015, gay marriage will be legal in every state in this country. The person next to her would have said, you're crazy. There is too much bigotry and homophobia in America. It cannot be accomplished. But the gay community and their straight allies stood up, fought back, organized, and said that in America, people should have the right to love whoever they wanted to, regardless of their gender. That's how change comes about. Let me give you an even more contemporary situation. If we were here 5 years ago, 5 years ago, no time at all. Somebody jumps up and says, you know, Bernie, this federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour is a starvation wage. We have to raise that minimum wage to $15 an hour. Now, the person next to him would have said, $15 an hour? You're crazy, man. You know, it's 7 1/4. You want to more than double that? What are you smoking? You know, what are you? You know, you're too radical. You're really crazy. Maybe we can raise the minimum wage to $8, possible. 9, 10, who knows? But $15 an hour, never. But what happened? 3 years ago, workers in the fast food industry, in McDonald's, in Burger King, Wendy's, you know what? They went out on strike. They demonstrated. They stood up and they fought back. And then, a couple of years ago, in Seattle, Washington, they raised the minimum wage $15 an hour. San Francisco, Los Angeles. That is how change always takes place, when people stand up, reject the status quo, and fight back. And here we are at this moment in this campaign. And I've been all over this country, you know, from California to Maine. And I have seen people looking around them and saying, wait a minute, why is it that in America we have massive levels of income and wealth inequality? Why is it that I am working longer hours for low wages and almost all new income is going to the top 1%? Why is it that the middle class has been disappearing for 30 years? Why are we the only major country on earth that doesn't provide paid family and medical leave, doesn't provide health care to all people? Why do we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major city? Why are our inner cities throughout this country and our infrastructure collapsing? Why? And people are beginning to catch on that once you start asking those questions, once you start getting involved politically, what seemed so hard yesterday will not be so hard tomorrow. The same thing with all of the other struggles for workers' rights, for civil rights, for women's rights, for gay rights. What we're fighting for now is a country and a government that works for all of us, not just the 1%. Now on June 7th, North Dakota and 5 other states will be having primaries and caucuses. What we have learned throughout this campaign is we do well and we win when voter turnout is high. I hope, no, Minnesota already voted. All right. And we won Minnesota big. So if we could do it in Minnesota, we could do it in North Dakota. So I hope very much that on June 7th there will be a very, very large turnout at your caucus. And I hope that this beautiful state, and we've driven around it a little bit, what a beautiful state you have, that this beautiful state will join many other states in the fight for the political revolution. Thank you all very much.